Namaskara. We're joining you live from Bengaluru, just hours ahead of the polling taking place in the first phase in Karnataka. But the face-off, remember, that's playing out is over the reservations. The Prime Minister yet again speaking about the reservations and the Congress government's decision to give a blanket reservations for Muslims. And this has led to a face-off yet again taking place. A clarification that has come in. But the Prime Minister yet again going on to attack the Congress government and saying that the rights of the SCs, STs as well as the OBCs are being taken away for the vote bank of the Congress party. Listen in.
वहां कांग्रेस ने शिक्षा और सरकारी नौकरी में पहले जिन ओबीसी लोगों को आरक्षण मिलता था, उस ओबीसी समाज में इतने सारे नए डाल दिए कि ओबीसी समाज को जो आरक्षण मिलता था वो उनसे छीन लिया, चोरी छुपी से छीन लिया। जो मुसलमानों को नया ओबीसी बना दिया था, गैर कानूनी तरीके से बना दिया था, संविधान के विपरीत बना दिया था, बाबा साहब आंबेडकर की भावना के विरुद्ध बना दिया था, उस मुस्लिम समाज को ओबीसी को जो मिलता था वो लूट करके उनको दे दिया। कांग्रेस ने धोखेबाजी की, पिछले दरवाजे से किया, खुद बाबा साहब आंबेडकर की पीठ में छुरा भोंक दिया। लेकिन वोट बैंक और तुष्टीकरण में डूबी कांग्रेस कर्नाटका का यही मॉडल पूरे देश में लागू करना चाहती है। साथियों, कांग्रेस दलितों का, पिछड़ों का, आदिवासियों का हक छीनने का षड्यंत्र लंबे समय से कर रही है।
Now, this is the Prime Minister's statement and he's made it at multiple rallies. But the Karnataka Chief Minister Siddaramaiah first came out with a post on social media. Now, he's given a reaction. Now, he says that the Prime Minister is lying. He says for the last 3 decades, there has been reservation, yes, for Muslims, 4%. This was based on a recommendation that came in from a commission. And more importantly, he says that the previous BJP government led by Mr. Baswaraj Bommai went to the apex court, tried to stop this reservation, but when the court came down heavily on them, they actually gave in writing in an affidavit that they'll continue the reservation. So this is the attack coming in from the Chief Minister of Karnataka.
4% ರಿಸರ್ವೇಷನ್ ಇತ್ತಲ್ಲ, ಸುಮಾರು ಮೋರ್ ದೆನ್ 20 ಇಯರ್ಸ್ ಇಂದ 28 ವರ್ಷದಿಂದ ಇತ್ತು. 94ನೇ ಇಸ್ವಿನಲ್ಲಿ ಜಾರಿಗೆ ಬಂತು. ಚಿನ್ನಪ್ಪ ರೆಡ್ಡಿ ವರದಿ, ಚಿನ್ನಪ್ಪ ರೆಡ್ಡಿ ಆಯೋಗ ಶಿಫಾರಸು ಮಾಡಿತ್ತು ಮುಸ್ಲಿಮಾನರಿಗೆ 4% ರಿಸರ್ವೇಷನ್ ಕೊಡಬೇಕು ಅಂತ. ನಂಬರ್ 1. ನಂಬರ್ 2, ಕಳೆದ ಬಿಜೆಪಿ ಸರ್ಕಾರ, ಬಸವರಾಜ ಬೊಮ್ಮಾಯಿ ಅವರ ಸರ್ಕಾರ ಅದನ್ನು ತೆಗೆದಾಕಿದ ಮೇಲೆ ಸುಪ್ರೀಂ ಕೋರ್ಟ್ಗೆ ಹೋದರು. ಸುಪ್ರೀಂ ಕೋರ್ಟ್ನಲ್ಲಿ ಏನಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ದಾರೆ ಗೊತ್ತಾ ನಿಮಗೆ? ಇದೇ ಬಿಜೆಪಿ ಸರ್ಕಾರ ಸುಪ್ರೀಂ ಕೋರ್ಟ್ ಮುಂದೆ ಏನು ಹೇಳಿದೆ, ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಉತ್ತರ ಏನು ಹೇಳಿದೆ ಅಂತಂದರೆ, ಸುಪ್ರೀಂ ಕೋರ್ಟ್ನಲ್ಲಿ ಅಂಡರ್ಟೇಕ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡಿದ್ದಾರೆ, ನಾವು ರಿಸರ್ವೇಷನ್ ಹೇಗಿತ್ತು ಹಾಗೆ ಮುಂದುವರಿಸ್ತೀವಿ. ಇವತ್ತು ಕೂಡ 4% ರಿಸರ್ವೇಷನ್ ಮುಂದುವರಿತಾ ಇದೆ. ಸುಪ್ರೀಂ ಕೋರ್ಟ್ ಮುಂದೆ ಬಿಜೆಪಿಯವರೇ ಅಂಡರ್ಟೇಕ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡಿದ್ದಾರೆ.
So these are some of the pointed questions that have come up from the Congress party when this has been in existence for over last 3 decades. Why is it that the BJP is picking the issue now, asking what did the Bommai government do? Why was there silence then? It was challenged in the Supreme Court. It had also been dismissed with the Supreme Court saying it's frivolous. Now the BJP is back to bringing the issue, saying that the BJP is nervous after the first phase of the polling. Let's open this up. T.S. Sankirta, spokesperson of the BJP, joining us. Mr. Anurag Naidu, political analyst. T.R. Prasad Gowda, KPCC leader, as well as Brijesh Kalappa, senior advocate, joining us on the broadcast. I want to begin by asking Mr. Sankirta, This has been in existence for over 3 decades now. The Bommai government was in power before this. You didn't do anything about it. Why speak about it now with just hours to go for the Karnataka elections?
See, today in Karnataka, the Panchamsalis made an agitation. They fought for the right and they demanded 2A status. But the Congress blatantly, if you see, they want to bring in the Muslims to the 2A category, to the OBC reservation.
No, that's already
see.
there.
Let me complete.
It's already
this,
there in
this,
existence
this
for the
is
last 3
the
decades.
this is the version of the Congress party from a very long time. If you see the 11,500 crores money which was due for the usage of the Dalits, the upliftment of the Dalits, it was deviated and it was spent on a different issue. This is the stand of the Congress party from a very long time. They always gain votes in the name of Ahinda or the OBCs, and they always cheat the people of the Dalits and the OBCs.
Chief Minister Mr. Sankirta, what he said, what has the BJP done? There have been BJP governments in the past. Mr. Bommai went to court, gave an affidavit that they'll continue. So why wasn't there an objection filed in the court?
We have removed the 4% reservation in the OBCs to the Muslims and given to the Dalits and OBCs. Let the Congress government also do the same. Why are they hesitant? Instead, they are wanting that 4% back to the Muslims. See, in our constitution, it says that reservation in the name of religion is okay. You give it to the Dalits. You increase the reservation from 50%.
That you're making when you were not able to prove this in the Supreme Court. It was passed on as frivolous. Mr. Brijesh Kalappa, what do you say to the argument that the BJP at least tried to do it, but the Congress government is doing open appeasement? This is something that has been in existence for 3 decades. Deve Gowda started it. He is now in alliance with the BJP, but the BJP now picking up the issue.
See, I'm sorry, but I don't know if you know, I'm not in the Congress party anymore. But let me just try to answer the question. As far as from the viewpoint of as a lawyer, one, that the Muslims or the Christians don't fit into any of the reservations because the Constitution doesn't even contemplate reservation for religious groups, right? But everything changed after Sachar and prior to that, right? So when they realized that the Muslims as a group, they require a certain degree of reservation because they are totally backward. So there was a new genre being created, and this is the cause for all of this. And in fact, it's also a matter of fact that even in Mr. Modi's Gujarat, certain communities belonging to the Muslims fall in the backward classes category.
No, certain. But this is a blanket reservation that has been given in Karnataka. That's where the Central Commission for Backward Classes raises an objection.
Again, to the best of my information, Mr. Deve Gowda was one of the prime movers of this reservation policy. So, and Mr. Modi is now with him. So, essentially, I think as far as elections are concerned, these are issues which will fly fast and furious during elections. But ultimately, my only point as a lawyer is that let all these issues be resolved. Let this not be an election issue for the elections in 29 also.
No, but
okay, valid points that the Chief Minister raised, Mr. Prasad Gowda, about the BJP and how much effort did they put in, because towards the end was when they actually approached the courts. But when you talk about a blanket reservation for one particular community based on religion, many people have argued against it. Now, the Chief Minister says based on a commission, but you feel in today's day and age it still makes sense, and is it wrong for the Prime Minister to say when it's happened in Karnataka, there's a possibility it could happen in other states?
For this root cause, for all this kind of statements making from Prime Minister is, now they are first time after 10 years they are seeing the downfall for BJP all over India. After the first phase of elections, they are experiencing that their party is going down now, and they are going to lose. After that, first of all, they used to raise the issues of Rama temple and all, and now they are trying to provoke the minds of the people. Now they come to know all these tactics are going old. Now they are trying to bank upon this kind of tactics.
But the NCPC has also issued a notice now, which is what the Prime Minister has mentioned.
Reservation is concerned. They are trying to do it only for the economically backwards.
But this is in Karnataka. Are you saying that from one Muslim to the other, is there a differentiation that's being done when you're giving reservation?
No, reservation based on the people who are, as our friend said, Brijesh Kalappa said, only people who are economically backward.
That's the precise concern that's being raised by the the National Commission for Backward Classes, that it's becoming a blanket reservation of sorts in Karnataka, and that's where the anomaly really lies. Anurag, coming to you, the biggest charge of the Congress is the BJP has been dormant. They don't raise issues when they are in power. When they, managed Karnataka for about 4 years, they didn't have a problem. Towards the end, when the assembly was coming towards an end, that's when they actually decided that they'll give this reservation to the Vokkaligas and the Lingayats. So why is the BJP raising this only during the time of elections?
Well, Deepak, if you go into that debate, the BJP will say, let's go back to the Congress era. The Congress will again go back to the... Karnataka has seen a flip-flop pattern. So if we go there, we will never end into any conclusion. Also, if we talk about blanket reservation, or if you talk about reservation on the basis of religion, we are not going to end up anywhere. The point is, should we really be talking about reservation on the basis of religion? The only buzz about the Modi government in the 9 years, the only strong sentiment that they've set in is the reservation has to be on the basis of economically weaker section. Yes or no? The only step was 10% reservation that was rolled out. That was the only big step that Prime Minister Modi's government has taken in the last 9 years. We are in the general election. Let's talk about central government's policies and outlook towards it. So if you agree that economically weaker section are there in all religion, whether it is Muslim, there are privileged, underprivileged guys, there are rich people. So you need to understand that we are setting a wrong narrative by giving space, and we should
But the
start
question
censoring.
is, it has been picked up by the BJP. It is the Prime Minister who's talking about it.
If I say, if you go back to the previous election where the Congress was in power, you can
But the Prime
again go
Minister
back to the
says that
previous.
it has been brought in now, giving the impression that it has been taken up by the Congress party now. So the debate continues, but more importantly, let's also focus on more local issues in Karnataka. The Lok Sabha elections and the campaigning for it have also revealed the fault lines within the Congress party. It looks like the leadership tussle, Deepak, between DK Shivakumar and Siddaramaiah is well known, and this time around, yet again coming to the fore during the Lok Sabha elections.
And more importantly, when you look at this, how the landscape of this election is going to be, we should note that Mr. Siddaramaiah, being the Chief Minister, one expected him to campaign, extensively in different parts. But he's focused a lot, of course, on, the Mysuru region. Now, DKS, of course, has been focusing a lot on the, Kanakpura or the rural Bengaluru region. The question that arises here is, are they also fighting for their spots after the Lok Sabha election? So let's listen in firstly to what Mr. DK Shivakumar said that sparked off this debate.
ಸಾವಿರ ಭಿನ್ನಾಭಿಪ್ರಾಯ ಇರ್ಬೋದು. ನನ್ನ ಮಕ ನೋಡಿ, ಯಾವ್ದಾದ್ರು ಊರವನಿಗೆ ನೀವು ಯಾವ್ದಾದ್ರು ಅಧಿಕಾರ ಕೊಟ್ರೆ ನಿಮ್ಮನ್ನ ಮಗನ್ ಕೊಡಿ, ನೀವೇನು ಭಾವನೆ ಇಟ್ಕೊಂಡು ನನ್ನ ಅಭ್ಯರ್ಥಿನ ನೀವು ಗೆಲ್ಸಿದ್ರೆ ನಾನು ಒಂದು ಮುಖ್ಯಮಂತ್ರಿ ಆಗ್ತೀನಿ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ ನನ್ನ ಮೇಲೆ ನಂಬಿಕೆ ಇಟ್ರಿ, ಆ ನಂಬಿಕೆ ಮೋಸ ಆಗುದಿಲ್ಲ, ಆ ಮೋಸ ಆಗ್ತಿಲ್ಲ. ನಿಮ್ ಸೇವೆ ಮಾಡ್ತೀನಿ, ಈ ಸೇವೆ ಮಾಡ್ತೀನಿ, ನಾನು ನಿಮ್ಮ ಮಗ.
Well, Mr. Prasad Gowda, I should definitely ask you this. The Deputy Chief Minister in the past during assembly elections as well, especially campaigning around Kanakpura, mentions things like this. During some Vokkaliga convention has spoken about this. This is once again coming up a couple of days before, the Lok Sabha elections.
Yeah, as far as Chief Minister post is concerned, it is up to the High Command to decide to whom they will say they have to take it. In case, of course, DK Shivakumar, struggled very hard, and as a party president, he struggled very hard to bring up the party to make 136 MLAs to win. That is his effort, no doubt. And even the Vokkaliga region voted for him that he will become the Chief Minister also.
But for him to bring in this sentiment in Bengaluru rural, does it indicate that it's becoming a more tough fight than they imagined, the Congress?
No,
with Manjunath coming there?
As a matter of fact, of course, as a matter of fact, there is no power fight in Congress, in Congress. But as far as matter is concerned like this, DK Shivakumar is a leader and mass leader.
Okay,
and
mass leader,
Vokkaliga
both Siddaramaiah and DK Shivakumar are mass leader. You've said that. I just want to ask you, if you look at Mysuru region, almost every 2 to 3 days we're seeing a campaign by Siddaramaiah. He's focusing extensively in his home's constituency. Similarly with DK Shivakumar as well. For the very first time we're seeing DK Shivakumar going to several apartments, going and campaigning. They're extensively campaigning, saying if you want to see me as the Chief Minister, vote for my brother. So is it becoming very, very clear that the leadership tussle, a lot of it depends on the results here?
Very good question. Not only is going each and every seat for Congress is very important. He's trying very hard and going to.
That's why he should go to all the constituencies, isn't it?
Even all the places. He went to Hassan, Mysore, Mandya, and even
Okay, you're saying he's gone all these places, but of course, when you make such statements, somewhere does it open up some cracks within the party about leadership?
not
Mr.
at all.
Kalapa, if you could
Not
come
at
in,
all.
how do you really view this? You've of course been there when these sort of cracks were emerging. Now you've decided to of course move away from that. But how do you really view this when you look at it from the
I
outside?
think both parties have cracks.
Yeah.
In fact, if there are differences in the Congress party, then equally there are differences in the BJP. And what is happening in Shimoga, I think, is very evident of that. So I think, see, as far as personal ambitions are concerned, no leader is going to hold back, right? So this is going to, it's a event which occurs in every political party. And what we have been seeing even in Hubli Dharwad, with Dingleshwara Swamy contesting and then withdrawing and so on, and then saying that he's going to support the Congress candidate. So both parties are equally poised in terms of the difficulties they're facing.
Okay, very quickly, maybe the BJP can come in here.
See, the problem in Karnataka is the Deputy Chief Minister and the Chief Minister both are mass leader, even I agree, but their mass is limited only to their constituencies. One is Mysore and second is Bengaluru rural. They're not coming out of their constituencies. Very adamantly, Mr. Deputy Chief Minister, who came. Let me. I did not interrupt. Let me finish.
Okay, very quickly, we're running out of time. Go ahead.
The Deputy Chief Minister is so scared that he go and threatens the voters that there are 1700 votes here. I only got 6. If you do not vote for Mr. DK Suresh, I will close the water facilities. I will not issue CC, OC. This is the kind of thing I see. These were the things which were heard in Bihar or Gujarat. That if you don't vote for us, the drinking water facilities will be closed.
Okay.
That is again seen in Karnataka.
Okay, Mr. Naidu, very quickly, 30 seconds.
And let me complete. They actually.
Okay, we'll run out of time. We'll run out of time, Mr. Sanketa. We'll run out of time. Anurag, come in. Anurag, come in.
Deepak, if Congress has to score big in this election, they need extra seats from Karnataka. There's no question about it. There is extremely high pressure on both Mr. Siddaramaiah and DK Shivakumar to deliver. That's why the seats distribution, if you see, they focus on winnabilities, betes and betis. The Jaipur resolution passed by Congress, no 2 tickets, but 5 or 6 betes and betis have been given ticket. So winnability is a factor. So the pressure clearly shows off. And this
Absolutely.
particular...
And about how they perform in their respective areas will probably define how the leadership is going to be in the next coming years. And also there has been speculation of a leadership change after a couple of years.
And
So
also
let's
this
of course
one is
see
a
what
prestigious...
happens. Time will tell, and the first phase of course is happening in just a few hours from now, like Pratibha was pointing out. We'll slip into a quick break. More coming up on the election yatra on the other side.
Amid the hectic campaign trail in Karnataka, we are catching up with Mr. Dinesh Gundarao. This comes at a time when there's a lot of controversy as well around the Congress manifesto, as well as what the Prime Minister has been saying. The Congress party is saying that this is criticism against the minorities. Thank you so much for joining us. First, I want to ask you, there was already a lot of controversy that had broken out over the Congress manifesto, especially talking about the wealth redistribution. Now, today we have Sam Pitroda, who has also spoken about bringing back the inheritance tax. Is that the official plan of the Congress party?
See, this discussion is so unnecessary. The resources of the country has to be divided and it has to go to everybody. We in Karnataka, we are implementing our 5 guarantee schemes, where almost in a year we will spend about 55,000 crores. This goes to all communities. So, Prime Minister is wanting to create a debate because he wants to divide the country because he is losing the election. Whereas we should be discussing what the Prime Minister has done for the last 10 years. His failure. So he wants to set an agenda, a false narrative, to discuss on something which is completely false.
I'll come to the Prime Minister's comments as well, but before that I want to ask you, because this is a comment that has been made by a Congress leader, before the Prime Minister spoke about it, the Congress leader spoke about it. I'll just mention it. Okay, I just want to tell you, in 2012 as well, Chidambaram as well, back then had also said that we need a discussion on inheritance tax. So is that in the back of the mind of the Congress party, that inheritance tax could be a reality if Congress comes to power?
See, inheritance tax is something that has been discussed for many, many decades. So when the party, whichever party comes to power, if we come to party will come to power, then obviously they may discuss it. It's not as, I don't think it's an issue for this election. Why are you making this an election issue? I don't understand this. You know,
not just Sam Pitroda, even Rahul Gandhi has spoken about wealth distribution.
Wealth redistribution is social justice. When we do the National Food Security Act, it's a form of wealth redistribution. When we do NAREGA, it's a form of wealth distribution. When we subsidize, when we give free education to school children for poor people, it's wealth redistribution. When we do social justice, when we do reservation for SC, STs backwards, that's in a way wealth redistribution. Wealth redistribution is definitely an important component. Why are you making this into something that is connected to minorities? In Karnataka, 22.75% of our budget is reserved for SC and STs. Who are SC and STs? Minorities.
I'll tell you what Rahul Gandhi has said. This was when the party's poll manifesto was released, and he said, and I'm quoting him directly, he said, there will be a financial and institutional survey. Subsequently, we will take up historic assignment to distribute the wealth of India, jobs and other welfare schemes. Yeah. And this is being seen as wealth redistribution of taxpayers.
What is welfare schemes? What is welfare schemes? Wealth redistribution. When I told you that 22.75% of our budget goes for scheduled caste and scheduled tribes, what is that? What do you want to call that? Wealth redistribution. When National Food Security Act, when we give rice free to the poor, what is that? Wealth redistribution. When we do a minimum support price for farmers, what is that? Wealth redistribution. When we subsidize LPG cylinders, what is that? Wealth redistribution. So, but why I don't understand, why are you trying to create a division in this country today? When you know you're going to lose, you say, let this country burn. Because I am losing, let me take take everybody down.
Okay, so you're saying it's all for politics, it's going to work against the BJP, also saying that the issues that the Prime Minister has spoken of recently shows the desperation of the BJP after the first phase of elections, because the BJP feels that it is losing ground, and that's the reason why we're hearing such statements come in. Thank you so much for joining us. We continue going across Bengaluru and getting you the ground report on what do the voters feel. Have these issues changed their mind? What is it that they're going to be thinking of when they cast their votes?
Election Yatra. Joining us today is the chairperson of the Manipal Group and also a philanthropist and a very popular face here in Bengaluru, Mr. Mohandas Pai. Sir, it's just a day to go before the city of Bengaluru and southern part of Karnataka votes. A lot of political narratives are being set, but for the urban population in particular, what are the main issues that they should really look at before casting their vote to their candidate or the party?
See, this is an election for the Lok Sabha, for the India election. This is not a municipal election, not a state election. So the issues for India are very different. What are the issues for India? Issues for India is how to create high quality job for young people. Every year about 1.5 crore young people join the workforce. Because 30 years back, maybe 20 years back, 2.5 crore babies are born. Out of which 1.5 crores today who are grown up to the age of 20, 21 will want jobs. We have to create high quality jobs. How will high quality jobs come? High quality jobs will come only through growth and development, to better infrastructure, better education and more investment. Now that is the big challenge for India. So people are looking at which party has the best prospects for them, which party will make the country grow, which party will create enough high quality jobs, invest in infrastructure and higher education, and I'm sure they decide. I think people are very wise. They know the issues are very different from local issues.
Yeah, you did say, of course, local issues are probably not going to be the biggest talking points, but of course, issues like water crisis became a talking point even during the Lok Sabha elections. Traffic is something that is widely spoken about, be it during municipal elections, assembly elections, or even Lok Sabha elections. The larger issues plaguing a urban city or a silicon city like Bengaluru, do our MPs need to focus on such aspects as well, and do you think that has been lacking?
The MPs need to focus on big investment projects for Bangalore, like the metro. The metro is 3 years behind schedule. Yeah. The new metro expansion has to get central government approval. Yeah. They must fight to the government of India or go to the government of India and get more investment for Bangalore. The suburban rail system has been delayed. Now it is gone on stream. They must get more approvals. We need the satellite town city roads to be done, which is getting done. I think there are some things the MPs have to do in Parliament to put forth Bangalore's need as a leading city of this country, and they have a certain role. And they also have to make sure that in their constituency, they work with the local MLAs to make sure that the quality of life improves for everybody. They have to work at the All India level to get investments into Bangalore. They have to work to make sure foreign investment comes. I think they have a bigger role to play, but the role is very different from that of a ward councillor or a MLA.
You did speak about suburban rail. The Prime Minister made a mention of it very recently when he was in Bengaluru about how the BJP has been pushing for it. You spoke about bringing in, funding for a metro. The biggest talking point has been how many states, not just in Karnataka, Tamil Nadu has been talking about it, Kerala has been talking about how the centre is probably doing injustice to southern states, to Karnataka in particular. They say funding is not being given, and it's a big struggle, especially for the Congress to bring in money from the centre.
I think this is a fake narrative that's being pushed to cover up the failure of the state governments. For example, the Siddaramaiah government is spending 50,000 crores more on subsidies. There is no money for growth and development. Their revenue deficit this year in 24-25 is 27,000 crores. They're borrowing to give subsidies because they came to power by saying we're going to give you freebies, we're going to give you guarantees, etc. Now they're in trouble. There's no money for Bangalore, no money for development, and they know when there's no money for development, people criticize them. What should they do? They point somewhere else and this has been done. Look, let me say one important thing. The devolution of taxes from the centre is done by a finance commission appointed for every 5 years under the constitution. They decide. Neither the UPA government nor the NDA government can decide. For the last 20 years, Karnataka share has been coming down. It's not today or tomorrow. There have been 15 finance commission. Every commission in the last 20 years, Karnataka share has been coming down. The last one was decided about 5 years ago. I don't see Siddaramaiah or the BJP people criticizing them at that point of time. In fact, when they came to Bangalore, the NK committee, I went and presented and asked them for a better deal for Bangalore. They don't. So this is a political ploy. There is no discrimination against the states, southern states.
Okay.
And if you look at Tamil Nadu, subsidies are 1,42,000 crores. They borrowed more money. They've got a huge revenue deficit. Who's going to give them money? Kerala. Subsidies are very high. It's a broken state. No growth, no development, no jobs. I mean, what do you expect? So they all want to divert people's attention.
You were just mentioning about subsidies that they're giving, or freebies, some may call it. What do you make of that? Because, time and again there are Congress MLAs themselves who come and say, well, we don't have money for development now. We are giving you a freebie.
Look, let me tell you one thing. Karnataka is the richest state in India. GDP is 28,25,000 crores in 24-25 as per the budget. Per capita income is around 4,15,000 rupees as against the India per capita income of 2 lakh rupees. Now, does this population, which is very rich, require 5 kg rice per month for 70% of the population? No. What we are saying is, give subsidies to the poor. Give them anything, 15%, 20% of population, please give it to them. Give some pension to the elderly. They need help. Give help to the elderly. For the rest, you develop. And if you want to give freebies, for the 70% where you're giving 5 kg rice, give scholarship for the children. Put money into education. Put money into roads. Put money into development. Go market the state to get more jobs. They want jobs. Karnataka is getting enough jobs. But the jobs are being taken for 40-50% of people outside because they're not educating enough. In the north of Karnataka, the gross enrollment rate may be 20-25%. Whereas south is about 40-45%. It's a lopsided development. Get your priorities right. Siddaramaiah still seem to think that it's in the 80s and 90s when Karnataka was poor. Let me say one thing.
But now the Congress of the centre has promised more.
I'll tell you. Let me say one thing. Siddaramaiah was the best finance minister Karnataka ever had. He created a revenue surplus. He ran the fiscal tightly. When a chief minister, the finance minister did very well. Suddenly, for this election, is saying social justice by giving 5 kg rice. What is the meaning of that? Free. He's doing it for different reasons because he knows it's the end of the line for him, next 5 years. But also, the people in the government have become more corrupt this time. The corruption has increased compared to the past. Now look at what happened in India. India's Congress manifesto reflects the attitude of the Congress of people of this country. From Pandit Nehru till all of them, barring the Manmohan, barring the Narasimha Rao regime, they kept India poor. They want to keep India poor by giving subsidies, by giving some doles, by keeping the Muslims down, by promising them freebies, so that they can rule and people will not challenge them. It's the old imperialistic attitude that was covered by Nehru. But in 1950 to 1980, India grew only 3.5% a year. The world grew 4.5%. Asia grew 6.5%. We became poorer in 80 compared to 50 because they suppressed private capital. And that's what they're doing here. Look at the manifesto. Where is growth? Where is development? I'll give 30 lakh jobs in the government. Do you want more jobs in the government where people get very good salaries and most of them don't work on oppressors? There are no vacancies. Devagowda has said, I ran the government of India, there are no 30 lakh vacancies. It's bogus. Then I'll give you some apprenticeship for 1 year. Do people want apprenticeship? Where will they give apprenticeship? 1 crore young people graduate every year. 25, 30 lakhs they want apprenticeship. Where will they give them?
You're saying the
Where
promises are unrealistic.
All the promise unrealistic. They have not calculated how much money is required. They have not made a study. They shut off their mouth. This is all driven by the Soros gang. Like Rahul goes abroad, he meets all those people. Sam Pitroda, the classic example.
Coming to that, you were talking about the manifesto.
Because mentally they think they are born to rule. People of this country are poor. They require doles. They're all poor. They have no aspiration. We have to take care of them. It's of divine responsibility.
Okay.
Like the divine responsibility of kings who are born to rule.
Yeah.
Now that is the attitude of Pandit Nehru and the whole family. And that is the problem. Only when Narasimha Rao was there, we saw change. And when Manmohan Singh was there, he was going to control the family. Narasimha Rao was independent. So same thing is there in the manifesto. And people like Sam Pitroda, Jairam Ramesh, I don't think they know what is happening in this country.
Precisely coming to them, and also you mentioned the manifesto of the Congress as well. There are some talks about, financial survey in the country. Reference was made to inheritance tax, though they came out and clarified, well, it is not something as a policy we are looking at, but it's a mention that I made during an interview. What do you make of it?
See, it's very simple. Some people have become successful in this country. Others are aspiring. Beat the people with the success, take away the money and say we're going to give to the poor and come to power by getting sympathy from the poor and creating hatred for successful. That's their attitude. But they don't want other people to be successful. They want to be the rulers. That permits them. I mean, it is very clear what they're doing. And who are the people around them? The hangers-on, family retainers, people who have not done any useful work in their life. They come and do all this because they've never been successful in their life. Which amongst them has really succeeded in life, worked hard to earn a living, build a business, build something of note, to come and say, look, I have done all this, I have come up from poverty, I have done all. None of them. You see who they are, who are the people who are writing. Praveen Chakravarti, the thing. I mean, they're all armchair economists without understanding what India is. Today, 1,25,000 young people have started startups. It'll go to 2,50,000. People want to be entrepreneurs. Suhail Seth made a statement in TV, I think with Navika, where he said that, look, who is the role model for young aspiring Indians? Is it a Rahul Gandhi or a Mukesh Ambani or a Nandan Nilekani? Now you tell me, what do young people, entrepreneurs want? They want to be like a Mukesh Ambani. They want to be like a Nandan Nilekani. They want to be Rahul. They don't want to be, increasing poverty, increasing want. They don't want to remain on government for doles.
The Prime Minister today said that, well, in the opposition, they're looking at one Prime Minister probably every year. They're auctioning the chair of the Prime Minister. Is that a cause of concern, not having a Prime Ministerial face in the opposition? Is that a cause of concern?
Yes, a cause of concern because there will be political instability. There's a loose coalition with nobody in charge. They have not said who is going to be the leader. Everybody will fight. You think Mamata Banerjee will allow anybody else to become Prime Minister? She will not join. She'll demand the price. And that's why she wants to get all the seats there. She's going on a big campaign, wooing some jihadis and all that to do that, right? So, it's a loose coalition. And there's no common manifesto.
Okay.
Today, if you want to vote for them, what is their manifesto?
Yeah.
Multiple manifesto. Nobody knows what they stand for.
Yeah.
They say after elections, we'll come with a manifesto. What is the point?
Yeah.
Before voting, people want
the
to know
entire
what
purpose
they
of the
stand
manifesto
for.
is lost. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, Congress has got its own manifesto, which is a giveaway. I'll give this, I'll give this, I'll give this, I'll give. Where is the money? Who's going to pay the money?
Last question to you, if we could take that very quickly. The urban population coming out and voting, every time the numbers are pretty low. What's the message do you want to give?
See, I want to appeal to all the people in urban India. Your future is getting compromised because you don't go and vote. You should send a message to all political leaders that your life is important, your quality of life is important, you also can count. By being indifferent, by going for holidays, not voting, you are destroying your own future, the future of your children. And you are not discharging your duty to your country. All of us citizens of the country have to express ourselves by voting. We have to vote for a candidate of our choice, whoever it is. You can vote for whomever you want, but please go and vote. When you go and vote, you demonstrate the commitment to the country. You demonstrate you're discharging your obligation as a citizen of this country. You demonstrate you care for the future of this country. You demonstrate that you are with the country in choosing a government of your choice. Every vote is valuable. Putting nota is stupid. Putting nota is totally stupid, it's cynical, and nobody should do it.
Coming out and voting is priority.
You vote for whomever you think, the best or the worst or whatever, it doesn't matter. And don't pontificate and say everybody is wrong, I am God's creature, everybody is a crook, nothing like that. Don't pass value judgment. Go and vote, discharge obligations, stand up for your country, and show your love and affection for the country and discharge your duty to your country.
So it was great having you on the election, Yadav. Thank you so much for speaking to us.
Thank you.
To the voters and the candidates, let's also speak about what's in the heart of the issue in Bengaluru. ahead of the elections, there has been a lot of talk about the law and order situation in Bengaluru and across Karnataka, and also the brand Karnataka that's getting affected. Ahead of elections is one of the biggest talking points. How much of it resonates on the ground? That's the question. We're going to be speaking to the voters as well. I have with me actor couple Harshika Punacha as well as Bhuvan Ponnana. Thank you so much for joining us. Recently, a controversy had also been triggered when you were attacked by a mob and you asked, are we in Pakistan? Tell us what really happened and what is the status of the case now?
Bhuvan, you want to explain the whole situation? So basically, what happened that day was we had food, like we had dinner at Karama restaurant, which is in the Mosque Road, Pulkeshi Nagar. So we just had dinner, we were coming out. It was a very nice night, you know, it was me, my sister and Bhuvan in the car. We got into the car and then he just started the car. And then there was this guy who came in and he said, this is a big car, so deke chalo, you know, in Hindi. And Bhuvan was like, he said in Kannada, Naninu move madila, I haven't moved yet, you know, if you just move, I will pass. And then he's like, ye Kannada ke log, and you know, in Urdu something and all. So then Bhuvan was like, oh, is it wrong to talk Kannada in Karnataka? Like, now Kannada matadidre tappa. That's it. This is the conversation I heard over there. And then the next minute you see these people have been, you know, they are coming on him. They're trying to hold his collar. They're trying to harass. They're trying to use all kind of words. And then in split second we see Bhuvan felt something wrong, like his chain falling off or something. He just gave it to me. He said, these people are trying to snatch the chain. Just look at the chain. It's cut. I see the chain is cut. And then that's when I called our inspector and I told him that there is this situation over here, and he was like, where, which place, which location? And that's when these people slowly dispersed from there, and the others were like, it's okay, nothing happened, you know, you please leave, and you know, they convinced us and sent us from there. So why I mentioned Pakistan, Afghanistan is because aren't we not supposed to talk Kannada, our language, our mother tongue in Karnataka? Is it a mistake to talk in Kannada? And why do you get agitated when someone is talking in their language? You know, you come to hit them and within no minutes, within no seconds, you have so many like 30 people, 40 people gathering there, and then they take advantage of the crowd. They're like, oh, we have people with us, we can go, you know, we can disturb the peaceful family. I think that's not right.
You know, he mentioned that there are certain areas where you feel like it's not even part of Bangalore. Bangalore is the IT city, it's the capital city of Karnataka. You don't expect somebody to say that, you know, I don't feel it's Bangalore, I don't know if it's safe here or not. So these are areas that I'm sure that the police, the government is also aware of. So do you think there are certain areas where the police, or, you know, are you saying that there's an understanding, or are you saying that there could be leading to more problems, which is that the police also think that, okay, in certain areas does not have too much of you know, security there, it may escalate? What do you think is the reason why you felt we are not sure if the, you know, law and order of Bangalore applies here?
So see, Pratibha, I think, you know, this issue of you know, people, the areas of Bangalore which are dangerous has been going on for a long time. It's not a new issue which has been there, but it's always been hush-hush. But if you observe, since 1.5 years, it's on the rise. The issues like this have been on the rise, and I think it's mainly because there's an issue that happens, the media covers it, there is a complaint, and then post 15-20 days, nobody knows what happened with it. The person goes in, gives a picture, stays in the judicial custody for a bit and comes out, and there is no action. And this has been happening not just with our issue. I'm even talking about, like, for example, if you take up the Neha Hiremat's murder case, which happened in Hubli, a similar case happened in Raichur. The girl's name was Madhu Pattar. And we went, we protested, 50,000 people, we did everything, and, you know, we wanted them to you know, we wanted them to give it to the CID and all that. They did give it to the CID. And then what happened after that? Nothing. It's been 5 years, and every time we call them, the response that we get, yeah, no problem. The response that we get is that we are investigating. Why do you need 5 years to investigate a case wherein you know who's killed her, you know everything, there's evidence,
but
and it's still
going on? Why do you think there's a delay, or why do you think because the police don't want to take this case further? Do you think, you know, why do you think there is a delay of that sort?
See, I personally think that, you know, most of these political parties use it for their momentum at that stage when they require it, when there's a hype in the media and all that. And then once it's done, it's just thrown and put there. Who are the people suffering after that? Their parents, their family and nobody else. So I think we as citizens should realize that we're being fooled by everybody. We're being fooled in the name of investigations. We're being fooled in the name of whatever investigation departments that they send it to. We're just being fooled. And I'm telling you, Neha Hiremat's case, let me tell this on record, another 1 month, no one's going to know about it. No one's going to talk about it. And it's just going to be that the investigation is going to go on. I can challenge you.
You also met the family members of Neha Hiremat. It's in the center of a political fight that's playing out, a slugfest that's playing out, with parties also saying that women are not safe in Karnataka. The Prime Minister also spoke about it. You spoke to the family members. There are also, from the government side as well, they say that this has just been politicized. I mean, a girl has been murdered, it's sad, but you're politicizing the issue. We can talk about issues that are happening in other states. Don't compare it to what's happening here. So tell us the family's version of it. What do they think about the politics that's playing out? Or do they think that because this issue takes limelight, that's the only way that they can get justice?
Absolutely. As in what they are trying to, what they spoke to us. I mean, the sad part about what they're going through, that's something which I cannot explain, because the mother says, I was there, madam. I was there in the college. I was right at the gate. I was waiting for my daughter to come out of the college. She had to just write her exam and get out of the gate. I was right there. I expected my daughter to come running to me and say, Mama, my exam was so good, I wrote so well, I'm going to pass with distinction or whatever. She comes out as a dead body. That pain of a mother, I think only she will understand, only women, we will understand what she's going through. And that's something which I cannot explain of what, pain they were going through. There were so many things, like the father was explaining how good his daughter was, how independent she was. She could drive, she could ride a bike. Madam, I made sure that my daughter should be raised as my son. I didn't want it to be like, oh, daughter, I won't send her to college. No, I want her to be like my son. I made sure that she was independent. So this was the thing what the parents spoke to us about. And yes, of course, they're fighting for justice because they think this is the only way they're going to get justice. People are getting there, people are meeting them, political leaders are going and meeting them. So this is the only reason, because what all that they're trying to say is, like Bhuvan mentioned, there is proof. There is a video of him stabbing her. And it happened in front of so many students. It happened in a broad daylight. Even after all that, what is happening? Investigation is happening. They are trying to find out more details about it. You have a video, you have a proof of that guy killing that girl. Take an action immediately is all that they're asking for. And all they're trying to say is, everyone's saying, punish him, put him in the jail for so many years. But we want justice for our daughter. We want that guy to be killed. We want that guy to be hung. This is what the parents are trying to.
Okay, so, we can understand the pain of the parents, and they also want justice for their daughter. But there's a lot of criticism as well, with many also questioning you, for you both for going and meeting the family members, even in other incidents. When you speak out, many say that this is just a political messaging that you're trying to give out, that this is just publicity, that you're wanting to foray into politics. How would you respond to that?
See, at the first place, Pratibha, whenever there's been an issue in Karnataka, we've been there for the people as much as possible. It's not now. As I mentioned, Madhu Pattar's case happened, before there was Shruti, before there have been multiple cases that happened.
And why not speak up as citizens?
So we've been there, number one. Number two, I think politicizing an issue like this is one of the ironies that we see in this country. A girl is dead. The family is crying, and all these people have to do is one side says that it's a love jihad, another says that it's a love story, and the people suffering are her parents, are her family, and nobody else. So I'd say, if you think that we've gone there to get publicity, well and good, it's okay. But again, by we going there, we reaching there at the right time, and if it's sending out a message to the society that yes, we are with you, and making sure that the compassion and the kindness which the society should have is back, I think if we are giving that message out, I think we are happy with it.
Okay, all right. Speaking about issues like this, why see it in a political context at all? That's the question. But since you mentioned that the Careful. Since you mentioned that the police also hesitate in taking some cases, that's a charge that has been mentioned in the political context of it. When the Prime Minister campaigns, he says that, you know, here there's a hesitation to take any action because of vote bank politics. We know a recent incident that took place where a man was harassed for playing Hanuman Chalisa. BJP is saying that action is not being taken because vote bank gets affected. Do you think in this battle for vote bank, or because elections are approaching, the political parties and in turn the police also hesitate because of this reason as well to some extent?
I wouldn't say they hesitated in our case, because the police department has fixed a crime team, an investigation team where there are an inspector, 2 PSIs, and there are 2 crime branch police officers who have been working, and they have been taking action swiftly. They showed us the CCTV footages and they asked us to recognize these culprits. We also did that. So if they are taking CCTV footages from 10 different places, that means they're at it, right? They are not just saying that we are just doing the investigation. They're actually working towards it. So I wouldn't complain about the police department. I wouldn't tell anything wrong about our system. All I'm trying to say is, please safeguard our women. Please don't politicize this. Please bring up a law where there is a swift action that is taken. There is a consequence which is given when there's some mistake which is committed. I wouldn't call a mistake. There is some crime that is committed. Make sure there is a consequence for it.
As we come to the end of the interview, as elections are taking place tomorrow, what is the message that you want to give out to the people about the law and order, what they need to think, what you're going to be thinking when you cast your vote? What would you like to say as we end?
See, personally, I think that unless and until there is strict laws like Uttar Pradesh comes in Karnataka, we are going to dogs, for sure, because such incidents have been happening for a long time, and it's just an eyewash and there is no action.
The bulldozer model.
The bulldozer model, instant karma. Until and unless there's an instant karma model comes here, I do not think that we're going to get any better, because I see that it's going to get worse. It is getting worse. It's going to get worse. If we being in the public sector, we being in the society, if we go through something like this, a common man who doesn't have access to media, who doesn't have direct access to anybody, is going through hell right now. One of my friends from the media calls me that, he was on the same road 1.5 months back. He was driving from office, and there's a guy who comes doing wheeling. He tries to avoid him. He hits the divider, one of these dividers, and he's been paralyzed for 1.5 months now. So there have been multiple cases which have been going on. So I personally think that a government like Uttar Pradesh has to come here, laws like Uttar Pradesh have to come here, so that people know that there are going to be consequences for the actions that they do. Here what's happened is, they know that, whatever I do, I'll go in and I'll come out and nothing's going to happen. So unless and until they are scared about action being taken about anything that they do, or about the place which they love so much, their houses or their families, it's not going to end. So I think such strict laws like Uttar Pradesh has to come here. That's when it's going to stop.
Okay, Harshika, your last message when you go out to vote, or for the voters who are going to come out and vote tomorrow, what would you say should be in their mind when they cast their vote?
All I want to request the people is, please do vote. First thing, half of them are like, I'm going to put it to Nota, I'm going to do that, No, please don't do that. Please don't waste your vote. Please vote to the person, to the right candidate who you think is going to work for you, who you think is going to work for the good of all of us. And it's, again, because we are talking about women's safety, because we are talking about women empowerment and all of this, I think you need to vote to the right candidate who thinks of all these things and makes our society better.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for joining us. So that's the message for you, voters. As you go out, when you cast your vote, what are you going to be thinking of? We've spoken to them. We're also coming to speak to you. Let's find out what the mood is on the ground.
Well, viewers, with that, it's the end of the Bengaluru leg of the Yatra, but of course, the journey only continues. Pratibha, of course, will take you now towards the northern part of the state.
Right, we're going to be seeing you live from Shivamogga tomorrow as the election begins here. The polling begins in Karnataka. We're going to be in Shivamogga, getting you the pulse of the people. We're going to be speaking to the candidates, going to be speaking to the voters, and getting you the sense on ground. We'll see you tomorrow at 5 p.m. Thank you for watching.